everyone, welcome back to Wanderlust Books, and today we are going to be discussing The Young Elites by Marie Lu. So some of you may have heard of Marie Lu. That is because she is the author of the Legend series that is very popular, and this is a new series that she came out with last year, and I finally got around to reading it, even though I've had it since it came out, and let's get discussing this book. First, I'm going to just talk about the synopsis of the book, and then I'm going to get into the discussion that is going to be spoily, because this book was very intense and I have a lot of feelings toward it, so I really want to get them off my chest. Alright, so I didn't really know a lot going into this book. All I knew is that Marie Lu wrote it, fantasy, and there's a chick missing an eye, and that's pretty much all I had going into this book. But I think that there's a lot more to this book than just those three things, so let's get to it. Alright, so The Young Elites is about the sickness that has hit the world, and it caused the adults to die, and the children that survive end up getting marked, and some of them end up actually getting powers. And so the children that get powers are these people called elites, kind of, and they can do all different kinds of different things. So the main character is named Adelina, and she is a very dark and disturbing type of character that I haven't read in a while, and she has a little bit of a villain feeling to her that I haven't seen in a lot of characters, except from like a villain's point of view. But Adelina, she tries to not be as dark as she is, but it's just in her nature because she grew up like that. Since she got sick and she ended up having the mark, it meant that she wasn't very needed to be courted, and her father kind of didn't want to deal with her because no man would want her, and that means that he wouldn't get any money out of her. And so her youngest sister, who also got sick but didn't end up with a mark, is still like super pretty, and a lot of men really want to date her and court her, and so her father is pretty much just like putting all his attention into his daughter that isn't Adelina, and pretty much not caring for Adelina as much as he should. And so in the book, in the first chapter, he ends up selling Adelina to this guy that just wants her out of nowhere, and he's like, well, what do you want with her? You're married, you have kids. And he's like, don't worry about it, I just want her. And so that's like something that would show that her father didn't really care for her and he just wanted the money out of her. So due to the sickness, Adelina ended up losing one of her eyes because the sickness got into her eye and it infected it, and so it had to be removed. And so that's pretty much like one of her really big flaws, is that she's missing an eye, and that's why a lot of guys don't even want to court her anymore, and that's why her father hated her pretty much throughout her entire childhood. So all these people that have gotten sick are pretty much frowned upon. Because of Adelina's sickness, she ends up gaining these powers, and she runs away from home, and she ends up becoming part of these people called the Young Elites. And so it's pretty much her dealing with these powers, trying to learn from them, and dealing with the Young Elites, who are also part of this type of society that are against the king and queen right now. And so it's pretty much just her journey and the people inside of it, and how she's going to deal with a lot of problems that come up. It's really good. It's a fantasy. It's not high fantasy though, so it's not as complicated as you think it would be. So that's pretty much just the gist of the Young Elites. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's a really great starter of the entire series, and so that pretty much just cuts off the non-spoiler portion of this type of review, and you should not keep watching if you haven't read The Young Elites. Alright, so The Young Elites threw me off of it because I'm sure Marie Lu will go a lot more into depth about the actual background and everything that's happened in the world in the second book, because usually the first book just gives you the structure and the second book has reasons to why things happened, but I just felt like I needed a little bit more reassurance, and I'm sure in the Rose Society, which is book number 2, I will get a lot more reassurance. But right now I just don't feel like I really have it for the plot of the book, where the setting is, and the background on the sickness and the Young Elites and the kingdom falling. For the Young Elites themselves, it was a very odd society because the main person that runs the society is the prince. And so I just don't understand how he has all of this money and all of this connections to run the things that he does, because I just found it really odd that this king that was pretty much shunned can do all these things, and he has this underground fortress where they meet up and do all this stuff, and he takes in all these elites, and I'm just how do you have the money to do all of this? I don't really understand. Talking about the prince, the Reaper, which is a really cool name. It's pretty badass. Everyone else had really odd names, and I think that he was just yeah, I'm just gonna have the coolest name, you guys get the sick dumb names. But the prince, I liked him. I thought he was really nice, and he seemed to have a lot of background problems, like his history was sort of dark, and it must have sucked growing up to be the prince and have been marked, because that sounds like it would have been really tough for him since he was like shunned from the castle and he's not the heir anymore. But like instantly I noticed that he was like really interested in Adelina, and that's not something that I would probably pictured for him. Like it was pretty instant for me. Like I did notice like right when he saved her that he was pretty much interested in her, which was, he did seem to have like most of his stuff together. Like he was the most balanced and the most level-headed one in the group, even though he could like kill someone in the group if they were out of line instantly. But he did seem like he was the one that like had his head on his shoulders and like held the group together, obviously, because he started it. And I thought that was a really good thing to have as a leader. But the other character that I really liked was Raphael, because he seemed to be the caretaker sort of the entire group. Like he was there for all of them and he knew how to take care of them, and if they had a problem most of them would probably come to him. And he's the one that mostly found all of them. I do understand that he would have this sort of connection with them, and I did like reading his point of view because he had a very interesting way with words, and I like to see that he wasn't on train at Alita. Like he wasn't on her side from the get-go, and he still wasn't at the end, obviously, because of everything that happened. But I like that he had this tiny sense of taking her under his wing and trying to make her better, because he was very scared of her and he didn't like how dark her history was and how her mind was. And I liked that he gave an effort to try and fix that. And I really like that in a character, and I really liked how Raphael was written, and I think that he was probably my favorite character in the book. I kind of assumed that Adelina's sister had powers, but her powers were sort of a shock to me on how she could take people's powers away. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't think that her powers would be so strong because she seemed like a sort of weak character. I didn't expect it, and I didn't think that she would be a very important character. And I'm pretty sure she's going to be a very important character in the second book to help Adelina probably take care of her powers and help her. I think that she'll be a really important key role in the second book on like taking care of the enemies and taking away their powers. And I think her sister will probably get really stronger in the second book, because in the first book she's very weak and she's girly. She's described very weak, even though she on the actual inside she's very strong, because she was helping take her sister's powers away from her so she wouldn't hurt her father, and she would do things for her father so Adelina wouldn't have been punished and all this other crazy stuff. So I'm just gonna dive into it and talk about like the last part of the book. So the most part that got me so upset was during the fight of Taryn and the prince. And it just goes to show how confused Adelina is when it comes to her powers, because she didn't even realize that the Taryn that came after her was the prince. Like, her illusions aren't very well shown and she can see them kind of, and so she should have known that the person that came after her was the prince, and she shouldn't have gone after him like that. And the part that like pissed me off the most was when he died, because I was like, he is a main character, he can't die, I don't understand. And I was like about to just close the book and end it there, because I hate when main characters die, and I hate when especially like main character lovers die, and that part bothers me a lot. And there's this other series that I read that the main character's lover dies, and I haven't picked that up since, and I've heard such great things about that series, and he probably came back to life or something, but I just couldn't pick it up, and so I got really pissed when that happened. And the epilogue pretty much helped me want to keep reading the story, because the new character that comes into it seems really like badass, and she seems like she could take care of a lot of shit, and she's going to go take care of that kingdom. And there is apparently an elite that can bring the dead back to life, but they apparently control them, and so I think that the prince will come back in the second book, but he'll be controlled by whoever has that power. And I think that's gonna be a really big plot twist, and I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm really hoping that he comes back to life. It's just, I don't know, I don't think that he can die. I mean, he can. He's dead already. He could not come back, but I just don't think that's like a great way to go with a book. You know what I mean? My favorite part, and one of my favorite parts in the book was with Adelina and the prince when they're dancing together at that ball, and they have this like reassurance of that they're like normal people and that they can do normal things, and they even kiss, and I was just like, ah, this is kind of cute. And then I really like that one scene afterwards, after all this crap goes down, where they're at the, almost to her, and they have this like really passionate kiss, and I was reading it and I was like, ah, like, oh my god, this is so good. And I just knew that their relationship was like gonna be very hard and it was gonna be very bumpy, but they would probably have a really passionate relationship, and it would be like one of those relationships where you think that it can conquer like everything. And so that's probably one of the reasons I was really upset that he got killed, is because I felt like it was going to help Adelina grow as a person through their relationship. And it just, that's one of the things that pissed me off the most probably, is that I felt like he could help her grow as a person. And I'm sure in the next book she's going to grow a lot more as a person and all that jazz, but I felt like, I don't know. I think one of my other favorite scenes was when Adelina was in the like sort of club with Raphael, and he was doing his little show, and she felt so mesmerized by him, and I could just tell that like this Raphael guy was like pretty cool, and he could like mesmerize all these chicks and these guys, and I really liked that side of him, and I really liked that essence of introducing like what he does to the storyline. So that's pretty much everything I have to say about The Young Elites. I really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, like I said in the beginning of the video, and I think it's a really great story to help build the storyline and the plot and the characters, but I need more in the second book. I need more definition and more history of everything that's happening. I liked the characters. I liked that the Adelina was very different and she was very dark, and it was a very nice twist to what Marie Lu usually writes. And I really liked her character. I know a lot of people thought she was kind of weird and that she had way too much twisted thoughts and that she seemed very, I don't know, like scary. But I really liked that it was different and it had this nice little twist in it. And I would recommend this book to anyone that's looking for a new like fantasy novel that is not very high fantasy at the moment. And I would recommend picking up the second book in October when it comes out, and the cover was just released and it is very beautiful. I'll put it right here. It has the little wolf on it for Adelina because she's the white wolf, and I liked this book. It's not just pretty much everything I have for this review slash discussion. And if you like and if you've read this book, please leave in the comment section below and discuss anything you'd like with me about what I've said in the review. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and it helps me out by knowing you like my content, and it helps you out by knowing to find me in your search engines. Please subscribe if you'd like to see any of my videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that's pretty much all I have for this video, so thanks for watching. Bye!